Derek Hoffman stepped off the transport shuttle and felt the cold air of Kepler Station hit his face. The station orbited a dead moon far from any star system, a place designed to keep things locked away from the rest of the galaxy. He carried a single bag containing everything he owned. Behind him, the shuttle doors closed with a hiss, and the ship powered up to leave. Derek watched it disappear into the black void, knowing he would not see another human for a long time. A tall alien with blue skin approached him. The creature had 4 arms and eyes that glowed faintly yellow. This was Commander Vass from the Krell species. He did not smile because Krell did not have the facial muscles for it, but his tone was polite enough. "You are the human called Derek Hoffman," Vass said. It was not a question. "I am," Derek replied. "Thank you for bringing me here." Vass turned and began walking. Derek followed. They moved through metal corridors that smelled of recycled air and industrial cleaners. Everything was gray and functional. No one had bothered with decoration or comfort. "You understand what you are here to do?" Vass asked. "Take care of the predators," Derek said. "Manage their feeding, their health, their behavior." "That is correct." The Valorian Council has studied many creatures from across the galaxy. The specimens in our care are among the most dangerous. They are called Zetharians. They come from a world where survival means killing everything that is not part of your pack. They are fast, strong, and they do not hesitate to attack. They arrived at a thick metal door. Vass placed his hand on a scanner, and the door slid open. Derek stepped into a massive space, a habitat the size of a human city block. The air here was warmer. The ground was covered with rocky terrain and deep valleys. Derek could see movement in the shadows. "There are 12 Zetharians," Vass continued. 3 are juvenile. The others are adults. Do not go into the habitat alone for the first week. We will show you how to distribute their food and water from the upper level." Derek nodded. He had worked with dangerous animals before. He had handled venomous snakes, massive cats, and animals that weighed more than cars. He knew how to read an animal's body language. He knew when to move and when to stay still. He knew the difference between fear and anger in an animal's eyes. As he watched, one of the Zetharians came into view. The creature was huge, standing 10 feet tall on its back legs. Its body was covered in thick scales that looked like gray stone. It had 4 arms, each one ending in curved claws that could tear through metal. Its head was narrow and pointed, with teeth visible even when its mouth was closed. The eyes were dark red. The creature moved through its habitat like it was trapped. It ran at the walls and barriers, slamming into them with tremendous force. It screamed a sound that made Derek's teeth hurt. It repeated this behavior, running and slamming, as if it had never learned that the walls would not break. "This is their nature," Vass said. "They attack. They never stop attacking. They never think. They just do. This is why they are dangerous. You cannot reason with them. You cannot predict them. They will kill anything that they can catch." Derek watched the Zetharian continue its pointless assault on the barriers. He noticed something that Vass had missed. The creature's breathing changed after each impact. It was getting tired. Its attacks became weaker. After 10 minutes, it stopped and sat down heavily on the ground. It was exhausted. "They learn," Derek said quietly. "What?" Vass turned to him. "The creature. It learned that the barrier would not break. It is tired now, so it stopped attacking. That is not just mindless behavior. That is reasoning." Vass made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been dismissal. Derek could not tell. "All animals have basic survival instincts," Vass said. "This does not make them intelligent. The Valorian Council has studied these creatures for 3 years. Their behavior never improves. They do not cooperate with each other. They do not plan. They do not use tools. They are predators, nothing more. They left the habitat and returned to the residential section of the station. Vass showed Derek to a small room that would be his quarters. The room was clean and empty. It had a bed, a desk, a food dispenser, and a window that looked out at nothing but stars. "Your work begins tomorrow," Vass said. "The feeding protocols are on the computer. The schedule is strict. Do not deviate from it. The creatures must be kept on a rigid routine. If you do not follow the protocol exactly, they will become unpredictable." Derek nodded. Vass left him alone. That night, Derek could not sleep. He stood at the window and looked at the stars. He thought about why he had left Earth. He had been a different person once. A long time ago, he had been something other than a zookeeper. He had worn a uniform. He had given orders and made decisions that cost lives. He had been good at it, which was the worst part. He was very good at it that he had walked away from all that. He had trained himself not to think about strategy and tactics and military planning. He had become a zookeeper because it was simple. Animals did not care about his past. They did not judge him. They only knew that he fed them and did not hurt them. But now, watching the Zetharian through the reinforced glass of the habitat, Derek could not stop his old mind from working. He saw not just a predator, but a creature with intelligence that had never been trained. He saw potential that no one else saw. And he knew with absolute certainty that he should not see these things. Yet he could not stop himself. When he finally closed his eyes to sleep, his mind was already analyzing the Zetharian's behavior patterns. His old training was waking up, and Derek could do nothing to stop it. Derek's first week at the station followed a strict routine. He moved between the observation deck and the feeding platform, delivering meat and water to the Zetharians. He maintained detailed notes on each creature's behavior. He documented what they ate, how much they slept, and how they interacted with each other. The work was mechanical and did not require thought. On the 8th day, something changed. Derek was in the observation deck when one of the juvenile Zetharians became injured. The creature had a deep cut on its front leg, probably from a fight with one of the larger adults. The cut was bleeding heavily, and the juvenile was in pain. It limped through the habitat and hid itself in one of the rocky crevices, away from the others. The protocol said Derek should document the injury and report it to the veterinary team. The veterinary team would then sedate the creature and treat the wound. It was a safe procedure that took 2 hours, but Derek watched the juvenile and saw something different. He saw an animal in pain and afraid. He saw an animal that needed immediate help, not a process that would take hours. He made a decision that was against all protocols. He put on protective gear and entered the habitat alone. The adult Zetharians noticed him immediately. Several of them moved toward him with clear intention. Derek did not run. He walked slowly and deliberately toward the juvenile's hiding place. One of the massive adults moved to block his path. Its claws came out. Its teeth were visible. It looked ready to kill. Derek stopped moving. He took his hands out of his pockets and raised them to show he was not a threat. He did not look directly at the creature's eyes. He looked at the ground. The Zetharian moved closer. Derek spoke in a calm, low voice. "I am not here for you. The juvenile is hurt. I am going to help it. You can stop me if you want, but I will not hurt you." He did not know if the creature could understand his words. Probably it could not, but it could understand the tone of his voice and his body language. He had learned this with Earth animals long ago. Communication was not always about words. The Zetharian watched him for a long time. Then it stepped aside. Derek moved past the creature and approached the juvenile's hiding place. He could see the young Zetharian pressed against the stone, its breathing fast and shallow. The injury was worse than it looked from above. The cut was deep and jagged. Derek removed the medical kit from his gear. He cleaned the wound carefully. The juvenile tried to pull away at first, but Derek kept talking in the same calm voice. He told the creature about nothing important, just sounds and words that conveyed safety and calm. The juvenile eventually stopped fighting and allowed Derek to treat the wound. When he was finished, Derek backed away slowly. The juvenile watched him go, but did not follow. The adult Cytherians also did not attack. They simply watched as Derek left the habitat. Back in the observation deck, Derek knew he should report what he had done. Instead, he made a decision. He wrote a false report saying the juvenile was treated by the veterinary team. He falsified the records. It was a direct violation of station protocols. He did this because he realized something in that moment. The Cytherians were not mindless killers. They were intelligent beings who had never been taught anything but violence and survival. They had no framework for understanding kindness or cooperation. But they could learn. Over the next week, Derek began a new routine that no one knew about. During times when no one was watching, he would enter the habitat and spend time with the creatures. He brought extra food. He did not force interaction. He simply sat in their space and existed quietly. The Cytherians gradually became accustomed to him. The juvenile whose wound he had treated followed him everywhere. The others watched with curiosity. Within 2 weeks, Derek had established a relationship with the creatures, based on trust rather than fear. Then he began teaching them. He used simple methods. He would perform an action and repeat it until the creatures understood what he wanted them to do. He used food as rewards when they succeeded. He used patience when they failed. He did this without making noise or drawing attention from the station's observation systems. One day, Derek demonstrated a simple coordinated movement. He had 2 Cytherians stand on opposite sides of a barrier. He taught them to move around the barrier in a synchronized pattern. The creatures caught on quickly. Their minds were sharp and quick. They simply had never been asked to do anything but attack mindlessly. After 2 months, Derek's trained group of Cytherians could execute complex movements together. They understood the concept of working as a team instead of individual hunters. They could follow hand signals. They could anticipate each other's movements. That was when Commander Vass noticed something was different. Commander Vass arrived at the observation deck on a morning when Derek was nowhere to be found. The Krell commander had come to check on the habitat rotation schedule, a routine task he performed every 2 weeks. Instead, he found something that made him stop and stare. The 12 Cytherians were executing a coordinated movement pattern. That should not have been possible. They moved in formation, turned in unison, and created a defensive circle around the 3 juveniles in the center. It was not random behavior. It was tactical. Vass immediately called for Dr. Zrethax, the Valorian director who oversaw all research on the station. Zrethax was old, even by Valorian standards, which meant he was very old indeed. He moved slowly and carefully, his body showing the weight of centuries. But his mind was sharp as ever. "What am I looking at?" Vass asked. Zrethax observed the Cytherians for a full minute before responding. Coordinated behavior. The creature should not be capable of this. The human, Vass said. Derek Hoffman has done this. He has trained them. That is remarkable, Zrethax said. His voice held wonder and excitement. How did he achieve this? The creatures have never shown any capacity for cooperation. I do not know, Vass replied, but I intend to find out. They called Derek to Zrethax's office. When Derek arrived, both the commander and the director were waiting. Derek knew immediately that they had discovered his unauthorized training program. He decided there was no point in lying. I trained them, Derek said. They are intelligent creatures. They just needed guidance. You violated protocol, Vass said flatly. You were instructed to observe only. You were not given authority to alter the creature's behavior. The protocol was wrong, Derek said. These creatures are capable of learning and reasoning. Keeping them locked in mindless patterns serves no scientific purpose. Shrithax raised his hand to silence Vass. Show us what you have taught them. I want to see everything. Over the next week, Derek demonstrated his training methods to Shrithax and a growing audience of scientists from the station. He showed how the Zetharians could learn through positive reinforcement. He demonstrated their capacity for problem-solving. He proved they could work together as a coordinated unit. The response was extraordinary. Scientists from across the Valorian network began requesting data on Derek's methods. Universities wanted to study his techniques. Military organizations sent inquiries about potential applications for warfare training. Derek became famous across the galaxy within a very short time. Offers poured in. A Krell military academy wanted to hire him as a tactics instructor. A research coalition offered him a position overseeing predator behavior studies on 5 different stations. 3 different species offered him compensation beyond anything he had ever imagined. Derek turned them all down. I am here to teach the Zetharians, he said, not to help anyone prepare them for war. This statement created problems. It became clear to everyone that Derek's interest in the creatures was not purely scientific. He viewed them as beings with rights and value beyond their potential. Usefulness as weapons. This created conflict with Vass. The Krell commander believed that all creatures could be evaluated based on their strategic utility. The fact that the Zetharians were intelligent only made them more valuable as potential combatants. From Vass's perspective, Derek's refusal to develop military applications of his training methods was both naive and wasteful. You have created something powerful, Vass told him, and you refuse to use it. This is foolish. I trained them to think, Derek replied, not to become weapons. There is no difference, Vass said. Thinking creatures are always weapons. The only choice is whether they are your weapons or someone else's. But Shrithax supported Derek's position. The ancient Valorian believed that scientific inquiry should not be subordinated to military interest. He gave Derek authority over the Zetharian training program and declared the creatures were not to be transferred for military purposes without Derek's personal approval. For 3 months, everything was stable. Derek continued teaching the Zetharians more complex skills. They learned problem-solving tasks. They learned to adapt their strategies when circumstances changed. They learned to show restraint and to understand concepts like mercy and protection. Then Derek made a discovery that changed everything. While reviewing the station's records, Derek found something disturbing. His background information had been uploaded to the Valorian database. Within hours, an independent researcher had accessed the file and made a shocking discovery about Derek that he had thought was buried in his past. The researcher discovered that Derek Hoffman was not just a zookeeper. 20 years earlier, he had been a human military strategist with the United Earth Defense Force. He had designed battle tactics that had defeated alien invasion fleets. He had commanded military operations across 3 star systems. He had left that life abruptly after an incident that had killed thousands of people under his command. People who had followed his orders without question and died because his strategy contained a critical flaw. Derek had tried to leave that version of himself behind. He had chosen a quiet life because he did not want to be responsible for any more deaths. But the truth was now public. Commander Vass read the information and came to Derek with a proposal that Derek could not refuse. The attack happened without warning. The Nethran Confederation pirate fleet emerged from faster-than-light space and opened fire on Kepler Station's outer defenses. 3 massive warships moved into position. The station's defensive systems, designed for remote monitoring rather than active combat, were overwhelmed within minutes. The first wave of pirate soldiers breached the outer perimeter and began moving through the station's corridors. The Valorian security team fought back, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. The pirates had military training and combat experience. The security team had administrative personnel trying to defend a research facility. The situation was hopeless from the start. Commander Vass coordinated the defense from the command center. He was a trained military strategist, possibly the best soldier on the station. But even his skill could not overcome the advantage in numbers and firepower. His team was being pushed back corridor by corridor. Vass knew the station would fall within the hour. The pirates would take the research data and the Cytherians. They would sell both on the black market for enormous profit. The creatures would likely be used as weapons by whoever purchased them. Everything Derek had tried to prevent would come to pass. With time running out, Vass made a decision. He contacted Derek through the internal communication system. "They are coming to the research section," Vass said. "You need to move the Cytherians or they will be captured." "What do you want me to do?" Derek asked. "Whatever you must," Vass replied. "The creatures are in the habitat section. You have 20 minutes before the pirates reach that level." Derek ran. He moved through the station as fast as his body could manage. Behind him, the sound of weapons fire grew louder. The station shook from explosions. Derek could hear alarms, screaming warnings that meant nothing because there was nowhere to go. He reached the habitat section and looked at the 12 Cytherians in their enclosure. The creatures pressed against the transparent barrier, sensing the violence happening around them. Derek made a choice. He opened the habitat barriers. The Cytherians were now loose in the research section of the station. Then he activated the communication system. "Listen to me," he said, speaking directly to the creatures. "I have taught you to work together. I have taught you to think and to coordinate. Now I need you to do both. The beings coming here want to capture you. They will hurt you. You need to protect this section of the station. Do not let them pass this point." The Cytherians did not respond in words because they could not speak human language. But they understood the meaning. They felt the urgency in Derek's voice. They moved into position as Derek had trained them to do. Minutes later, the first group of Nethran pirates entered the research section. They saw the Cytherians and laughed. They believed they could handle 12 creatures. Even massive ones thought they were wrong. The Cytherians executed tactics that Derek had taught them. They used the terrain to create choke points. They used coordinated attacks to overwhelm opponents from multiple angles simultaneously. They demonstrated discipline and patience. They did not charge mindlessly. They thought and adapted as the pirates changed their tactics. The first group of pirates was destroyed within minutes. More pirates came, in larger numbers. The Cytherians continued to hold the line. They worked together as a unit that Derek had created through months of patient training. The key difference between the Cytherians and the pirates was that the Cytherians had a purpose beyond simple survival. They were protecting their Tari. They were executing a plan that they understood. The pirates were following orders to capture something. They did not care about discipline and purpose. One dot by the time Commander Vass and the surviving security team pushed the remaining pirates back to their ships. The Cytherians had defended the research section completely. Not one pirate had gotten through. The creatures stood over the bodies of their enemies, breathing heavily but unbroken. The pirates retreated. Their ships disengaged from Kepler Station and accelerated back toward faster than light space. Within 30 minutes, they were gone. The station was saved. The creatures were safe. And Derek's role in the victory could not be hidden or ignored. Derek stood before the Valorian Council in the main assembly hall. The chamber was massive and cold, designed to inspire respect in those who entered it. 12 different alien species sat in elevated chairs arranged in a circle. Derek stood in the center, alone. Commander Vass sat in the Krell position. His body still showed injuries from the battle. His right arm was in a medical support device, but his eyes were clear and focused as he watched. Derek, the chair of the council, was occupied by an ancient being named Krellin, a member of a species that had been exploring the galaxy for over 10,000 years. Krellin had seen thousands of conflicts and made decisions that affected billions of lives. Derek Hoffman, Krellin said. His voice was surprisingly soft, despite the enormous size of the assembly hall. You have done something remarkable here. You have taken creatures that were considered mindless predators and transformed them into thinking beings capable of complex behavior and moral reasoning. Derek did not respond. He waited. The question before this council, Krellin continued, is what should be done with this ability you have demonstrated. You have shown that you possess knowledge and skill in military training and tactical instruction. The galaxy faces many threats. There are species that need defense. There are conflicts that require the kind of strategic thinking you clearly possess. Krellin paused. Derek understood what was coming. The council would like to offer you a position, Krellin said. You would work for the Valorian military structure. You would train creatures for combat roles. You would advise on tactical matters related to predator deployment. You would be compensated with access to any resources you require. Your position would be one of great authority and respect. Derek listened to the entire offer. When Krellin finished, Derek took a moment before responding. I appreciate the offer, Derek said, but I cannot accept it. I am resigning from my position at Kepler Station effective immediately. The council was silent. This was not the response they had expected. You refuse? Krellin asked. His voice held a note of confusion. You would turn down this opportunity? Yes, Derek said. I am refusing. Commander Vass leaned forward in his chair. Why? He asked. You have the chance to do what you are best at, on a scale that would affect the entire galaxy. Derek took a breath before answering. The Zetharians are not weapons, he said. They are thinking beings. They have learned to cooperate and to understand complex concepts. They can make choices and understand consequences. They have shown compassion and restraint. They are sentient. Yes, Vass said. Which makes them more valuable as soldiers. No, Derek replied. Which makes them deserving of freedom. They should be given choices about their own futures. They should not be forced into military service or trained to become weapons. They are beings with worth beyond their usefulness to anyone. Krellin watched Derek carefully. And what about your own responsibility in creating them? The ancient council member asked. You taught them to be weapons. You trained them in tactics and strategy. You created what they are. Derek acknowledged this truth. I did, he said, and I bear responsibility for that. I thought I was simply teaching intelligent creatures to think better. But I know now that military training and tactical teaching always leads to weapons. There is no middle ground. Either I continue on this path and become responsible for more deaths, or I stop. And so you choose to walk away, Vass said. Yes, Derek replied. I walked away from military service 20 years ago because I could not accept the way of command. I could not accept being responsible for deaths. I became a zookeeper to escape that responsibility. Then I came here and fell back into the same patterns without even realizing it. I taught beings to fight. That is what I do. That is what I am good at. And that is why I have to leave. Derek looked directly at Vass. You told me once that thinking creatures are always weapons. That there is no choice except whose weapons they become. You were wrong. The Zetharians showed restraint in battle. They stopped fighting when the threat was ended. They demonstrated that trained military creatures can choose mercy. That means there is another choice beyond weapon or non-weapon. Krellin rose from his chair. The council members watched him carefully. "What will you do now?" the ancient being asked. "I am going back to Earth," Derek said. "I am going to work as an ethical consultant. I want to help ensure that future contact with alien species is based on respect rather than exploitation. I want to make sure that no other thinking being is treated as a weapon because someone discovered they could be trained." Vast did something unusual for a Krell. He made a sound that resembled human laughter. "I respect this choice," he said, "even though I disagree with it. You show more strength in walking away than in staying." The council voted that evening. They agreed that the Zetharians would be offered a choice. They could remain on Kepler Station as residents rather than captives. They could be offered training in various fields and given autonomy to choose their own paths. 3 of the creatures chose to work with a research team studying ecological restoration. 6 others chose to take military training voluntarily and joined a defensive force protecting vulnerable colonies. The remaining 3 chose to live peacefully on a protected preserve designed specifically for their species. Derek prepared to leave. On his final day, he went to the observation window of the Zetharian habitat. The creatures saw him and moved to the transparent barrier. They made sounds that were not quite words, but that Derek understood as expressions of gratitude and farewell. He placed his hand against the glass. The juvenile whose wound he had treated all those months ago placed its clawed hand against the glass on the other side. For a moment, Derek and the creature simply acknowledged each other. Then Derek turned and walked away toward the transport that would take him back to Earth. Behind him, the Zetharians watched the human leave. They had learned to think. They had learned to choose. Most importantly, they had learned that Derek Hoffman had chosen to give them freedom instead of continuing to use them. This was the most important lesson of all.